Uh, Today, I wanted to talk about, are there prophets today? There are lots of people claiming there are prophets today. There have been many self anointed prophets claiming to speak for God in these last days. They use Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 through 13 as their proof text, and we will look at it to see what it actually means. A lot of people look at this passage and believe it says that more prophets will be called. So, first, let's look at Hebrews chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto his Son, to us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds. Uh, just notice um, uh, in verse 1 there, he said he spake in time past. And this is just notice that word is the Greek tense means that it's not repeatable and it's all in the past. And then in verse 2, he said he hath in the last days spoken unto us by his Son. Spoken is also in the same thing. It's in past tense. Greek. It means it's not repeatable and it is all in the past. So when the book of Hebrews was written, there were no prophets called at that time. John the Baptist was the last Old Testament prophet, and he's mentioned in the New Testament. Then in Jude verse 3, it says, "Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that you should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints." Notice that once delivered unto the saints is also past tense. So, all right, so now let's look at Ephesians 2. Now, therefore, verses 19 through 22. Now, therefore, you're no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints of the household of God, and are built upon the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom all the building fitly framed together groweth into a holy temple in the Lord, in whom ye also are builded together for an habitation of God through the Spirit. So this tells us that the apostles and the prophets were the foundation of the church, and Jesus Christ was the chief cornerstone. God would not call the apostles and prophets again after 2,000 years to start building another foundation. That should be clear. And then in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 9, it tells us, "For we are laborers together with God. Ye are God's husbandry. Ye are God's building." So on that foundation that the apostles and the prophets built, we now see that we are the building that sits on that foundation. So the gift of a prophet in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11 was a temporary gift given by Christ for the laying of the foundation of the church. Remember that the early Christians did not have a complete Bible. And some of them did not have any access to any New Testament books. After God's Bible was completed, there was no longer a need for prophets. Then, too, we are no longer building a foundation, but building, but we're building the building, and then on the foundation. Prophets were used only to build the foundation of the church, and that was completed 2,000 years ago. And it's when the church was being established. Now, look at Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2, which says, Ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. Which means we cannot take anything away from God's word. And then, so now let's look at Revelation chapter 22, verses 18 through 19. And that tells us that, For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book, if any man add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. And if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part of the book of life and out of the holy city and from the things which are written in this book. So today's self-anointed prophets are adding to God's word, which is forbidden, and means that they are not prophets called by God. Jesus himself told us that there would be false prophets. Look at Matthew 24:24, which says, For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great things and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they would deceive the very elect. So if God didn't call them, then they're false prophets, and that doesn't mean that they won't prophesy some things that are the truth. Satan himself wants to deceive, and he'd like to deceive even the very elect. It is really, really serious, and we need to be on guard for the false prophets because they will lead us into the lake of fire. There are prophets today, and some of their prophecies come true, but these are false prophets. So look what Jesus said in Matthew 7:22 through 23 about false prophets. He said, Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? Now get that. He says, Have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name have done many wonderful works. Of course, none of that gets us into heaven. Being a prophet doesn't get us into heaven. Being a prophet doesn't mean we're saved. It says, Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have you not prophesied in my name? Of course they have. And a lot of it's come true because they're being taught that by the demons. And then it goes on to say, and in thy name have cast out devils. Of course they have. And you say lost people can't do that, but they can. And if they're demon led, and in thy name have we done many wonderful works. Of course, works doesn't get us to salvation, but yes, a lot of these false prophets, they've done many wonderful works. And then this is Jesus speaking, by the way, and he says, and then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Okay, so clearly, you should see that false prophets can have their prophecies come true, but then Jesus says he never knew them. Thank you for listening.